EJ, how do you feel about LCP? I know it's still early, but what do you think about long term?
At the end of the day, it all depends on the number. This is something that is going to grow exponentially.
Welcome to Beyond the Game, Wealth Mastery for Athletes. I'm Kris Benson, private equity real estate investor, and I'm joined by 9-year NFL vet Alec Ogletree. Beyond the Game is a podcast where we will provide a playbook for financial growth both on and off the field. Join us each week as we'll have in-depth conversations with other pro athletes as they walk us through how they've created wealth beyond the game, both on and off the field. They're going to share their triumphs, lessons learned, and setbacks along the way so that you don't make the same mistakes. Join us. I think you're going to have a lot of fun. Welcome to Beyond the Game. This episode was a special one. We actually had two guests along with Alec and I, both ex-Major League pitchers, one Edwin Jackson and the other Brandon Beachy, both guys coming out of the Southeast. Edwin had a long storied career in the MLB, played 14 years with 17 teams. And Brandon Beachy played for the Dodgers, played for the Braves here locally out in Atlanta. Injuries kind of derailed his career from there. But both guys have significant experience in franchising. Brandon owns his own franchise, actually a home services-based business in Tennessee, Insulation, and also is a consultant for a franchise consulting group where he'll talk to guys about what they want to do and provide some insight on how to create due diligence around their brands and provide guidance in the world of franchising. Edwin has built a fund to help brands build their scale and using professional, both current and ex-athletes to help them scale and doing some really interesting stuff in kind of the lifestyle type brands. He's got a neat one called Raining Berries, where they're doing acai bowls and coffee and kind of a retail restaurant type feel. So really interesting feedback from both of them and their perspectives on franchising. This is the thing we get a lot of questions about, how to get started and what are the things to look for. So hopefully you guys enjoy this episode with a roundtable with professional pitchers. Welcome to Beyond the Game. Alec and Ogletree and I have a special treat for you today. We got 4 dudes on the podcast, not Alec and I and a guy. We got Edwin Jackson and Brandon Beachy on the podcast. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for taking the time.
Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man. Appreciate y'all coming on, man. This is exciting. This is the first time we've had 4 people on the call at once, so we had a little trouble to begin with, but I think we're on the way and we're off well. We have it's special because we got two former professional baseball players here, and
pitchers,
now
both pitchers,
number one, and then now we got you both are in the franchising world of transitioning from your playing career. So I guess we can kind of let you guys kind of tell each one kind of your perspective of how you got involved with franchising and all of this stuff like that. But EJ, I guess we'll start with you. Just tell us a little bit about like how you got started in with now Raining Berries, I guess, and then to your LCP concessions, all that stuff as well, and just kind of how the opportunity came about and everything. And then we'll go to you two next, Brandon. So,
All right. I got started in the franchising. Really, it started at a wealth summit that was with Craig Brown and Adrian Muhammad that they put together, and I ran across BIML, which is the purpose of the wealth summit was to come across different business people in different business fields, whether it's franchising, whether it's real estate, whether it's private equity, whatever it may be in the business field of a person's interest. Those summits were put together for us to be able to make those connections, and I was able to connect with BIML And I didn't know who he was. He didn't know who I was. And we kind of just struck a conversation. You know, how you doing? I'm Edwin. And he was like, I'm Benson. And he was like, hey, you should take my card. Raining berries. And I was like, raining berries? What's that? Which is an acai smoothie coffee, and also adding gelato to it. So Bimo currently has 8 raining berries operating, and I want to say there may be 9 or so in the works. And we partnered with Bimo in order to grow his brand, you know, to exponentially grow his brand. And every brand that we are partners with is just that, it's a partnership. We are looking for partnerships. We don't just want to be an investor to where we just throw money at a brand and hope they grow. We are looking for a long-term partnership and helping these brands grow around the country. And also it gives people that are part of LCP, which is our fund, where we have athletes as our group. As Alec and myself are part of that group, we have former athletes, we have current athletes that are part of that group, and we are general partners, which is something that you don't see. And not only that, it's a minority based group, and you don't see that as well. So we have 2 components of LaFair Capital that you don't see in the business world, and you don't see in the business models, where we have minorities and also athletes as general partners. And I mean, we have we have real estate, we have franchising, we have dealerships. So there are different components to LCP, and everyone has their kind of component that they're dealing with. And on my side, I'm dealing with the franchising and the dealership part. We have a Vanderhall that we partner with on the dealership side. On the franchising side, we have Raining Berries, we have a brand, Rico's Pizza, that we are working with, and we have 2 or 3 more other brands that we are in conversations with at the current moment. And we're out to help those brands exponentially grow, and also help people create ownership. So we're out reaching to different athletes or different people who wanna have interest in, you know, ownership of a brand, ownership of a company. So we provide the pathway for athletes and other people to create ownership and create generational wealth, either after the game or while they're playing right now at the current moment.
Sign me up, coach.
Hey.
No, kidding. Yeah, kind of the same question here too, Brenda. Just kind of get your take on, you know, kind of how you came about with what you got going on as well. I know you've been on before, so people that have watched before, but you know, just kind of give a little synopsis of kind of.
Yeah, I'm kind of living out a lot of the following that path that EJ's talking about. You know, I got out of playing, and you know, I went over it a lot the last time. It's like, you know, I was kind of lost through my transition from baseball, and then looking around at what I wanted my life to look like. The lifestyle I wanted, you know, it was clear I needed to be entrepreneurial. To control my time, you know, something we don't have in sports is control of that schedule and freedom. I wanted that badly, and I had no ideas or knowledge on business. So a friend put me in touch with somebody in the franchising world, and I quickly realized, hey man, this fits, right? I can skip the first few years of figuring stuff out by getting into a system where they've already figured it out. They have a playbook. I can apply, you know, my hard work and, you know, the things that made me successful on the field, and build a team and lead and be a good teammate and servant leader, and build something, you know, substantial. So I got into a system called Koala Insulation, you know, a home service brand. And, you know, I put in a good year of working hard on that business. Was able to, you know, hire myself out of the day to day. You know, it's manager run at this point. And then at that time, I joined a group called Fran Choice, because I knew, you know, the other thing I knew right away was like, man, I wish baseball had connected me or told me that this was a possibility. So I said, I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy for other people that are in my shoes right now, struggling with direction in that transition, where I can, you know, they can pay me nothing and we can have some conversations and I can at least show them what's out there in this world. So, you know, I'm helping people, you know, that have the entrepreneurial spirit, investigate franchises. And, you know, the way I do it is try to understand their goals and find businesses that fit that instead of the other way around.
Mm-hmm. What's the
Let me not
biggest
forget. Hold
brand
on,
of, yeah.
Chris. Before you go, let me not forget my partner Dave Shaw, which is in LCP Concessions. Well, we are both co-owners. Let me not forget Dave because he does an extremely amount of work.
Dave,
He does an extreme
Dave is
amount of work
hilarious.
within the company. Hey, Dave is my man, and also we have Steve Gardner helping us as well on the franchising side, over 2 decades worth of experience. So we have a great team collectively that are helping us find these deals and put these plays together.
What's the limiting belief? I guess this is both to Edwin and Brandon think of yourselves in this position, but what's the limiting belief where guys don't get more involved? Why is it a hurdle? Is it just lack of knowledge?
I mean, I can speak for myself. For me, it was lack of knowledge. For me, it used to be not being the smartest in the room in this particular subject that kind of deterred me from coming to it. I mean, and that was a hurdle that I faced, being a newbie in the franchising world. I was like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. How am I going to do this? I have zero clue. I am a baseball player. I know what I'm doing on the field very well, but in this space, I'm like the novice. I have no clue. So that was a deterrent. But after I got over it and I had to take the Bill Gates approach, you don't need to be the smartest in the room. You surround yourself by people who know what they're doing, and you can be good at what you do, and you surround everybody else around you who are good at what they do, and you come together as a team collectively, and you have a machine.
Yeah, Brandon, what do you see in the consulting side of things as you're talking to guys? Like, what's the biggest hurdle they face?
Yeah, I think education is the biggest one. Just knowing what's out there and what's possible. Like EJ was saying, franchising fits a lot of that because you don't have to be an expert. Like, they almost don't want you to be an expert, right? They want you to bring your skill set to the table. And they're going to have either systems in place or some guidance on who to hire, to make up where you lack. And that kind of coming humbly to the table is what leads to success, right? The arrogance and ego of, no, I'm the expert here. Those are the franchisees that I see struggle, honestly. Man, I crushed it in sales. So I'm going to do the sales for my franchise, and different type of sales, but that ego gets in the way a little bit. And I've seen people struggle there, as opposed to just, hey, teach me. I'm going to be a sponge, soak things up. And I'm going to be malleable, for me. I'm going to put the effort in and all the other stuff. But yeah, the education on the front end, it's, there's just a lot of ignorance about it. I don't think people understand what it is. And that kind of keeps people away.
Yeah, so competitiveness, different language.
For sure. That's definitely for sure. And so I guess it just kind of makes me think about, like, everybody has most everybody kind of has somewhat of the same, not like the information's out there. How do you guys suggest somebody go and seek that information? Or is it like seeking a person? Like, anybody can be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to Google franchising, like, and see what it tells me to do X, Y, and Z. Or is it more so like, okay, yeah, you can do kind of the little basic stuff, but is it kind of one of those things where you feel like you have to be able to take that leap and jump into it and kind of figure it out on the way, like, as you building,
I think there's a couple approaches, right? I think, like, if you're looking to do something on your own, like, I'm the guy. That's what I'm doing is to be the guy for that person to talk to, where I can at least help educate you and point you in the right direction, whether it's a specific brand or whatever. I can take you through some things that help you learn a lot about it and figure out, because a lot of the people, especially athletes that I talk to, I ask a lot of questions. The answers are a lot of times, I don't know. I just, at this point, I don't know, which is okay. Like, and I think that's part of, the fear of on the front end is I don't know. But that's good, right? Like, learning, going through looking at a few different brands or whatever it is, you learn those things. You figure out what you like and dislike. Now, but I think the role EJ's taken up is perfect for the other type of person where they want to be involved, but maybe not an operator, where I think there's a lot of room in this space for both. And I'd love to see us collectively doing more in it.
Yeah. I mean, I use the analogy like this. If you take somebody in the sports world and they want to be better at their sport, you can watch YouTube, you can read all the books you want to, but the best way to do it is find somebody who has done it and been successful in that lane and learn from them. They've been in the fire. They can tell you the ins and outs. They can tell you what to do, what not to do, what to look for, what not to look for. And then you can add that, and now you can do research, and now you have something to build your research off of that you've talked to somebody hands-on with who's done it in that space, whatever the space is that you're looking to do something in.
Yeah. Like for me, like it's kind of that feeling of like, just anything. Like you go out there playing in whatever sport you playing, whatever, right? You have those big moments. But knowing that, like, let's just say, for instance, like you're a rookie or whatever, you coming in. But like in my case, like you got some of these older guys that's been through the fire. So it's like that comfort feeling of like being able to see somebody older that's already been through it and kind of like, yes, they can tell you everything. They don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but they're like, no, this is something that can happen in here or whatever, but you'll be okay as long as you do X, Y, and Z. Like they kind of give you tools to, kind of keep going. Like don't get discouraged, because I feel like a lot of times people in any space that they do, most of the time they just give up on trying once it becomes, too difficult. It's something that they don't like. I guess kind of my next question would be, what's something that, you both have experienced that, you didn't like about franchising, or something that you just didn't agree with or whatever?
That's a tough one for me. I'm still fresh in it. So I'm in there.
I'm in the honeymoon phase.
Listen, I tell people, I say I'm the boots on ground and learning at the same time. I'm like the rookie that you throw out on the field, like, here you go, kid, let's go get it done.
Yeah.
And you figuring out how to navigate the system with the people you're surrounded by. So Beachy might have some better insight on that, because I'm still in that beginning stages to where I'm still kind of learning the ropes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's ups and downs. Like, first time I had to fire somebody wasn't the most fun I've ever had. That's for sure.
You never had to fire like your agent or anybody?
No, I never fired an agent. Maybe I should have.
You better than me. I fired about
I'd have been through about 3.
But there's struggles, right? But I think the unique thing about franchising is kind of what you were just touching on, was being able to lean on teammates. Like that's what your other franchisees are. Like that relationship is super unique, where I'm one of 100 around the country doing the same thing, and we're in it, and we're in chats and having meetings and kind of sharing with each other. So my buddy across the country, he might take one blow that, I can learn from him and avoid dealing with myself, and vice versa for the whole system. So that, and that's something I think it's important. And I help people with getting comfortable with that on the front end too, because, it's not all rainbows and sunshine in business ownership. And understanding that and getting comfortable with what those bad days look like is a big part of it. Right. And I think that's, again, it just speaks to the ignorance and the fear on the front end. Is like, you'll never know if you don't find out, if you don't ask, like, hey, you're running this restaurant. Like, what does the worst day for you look like? Oh, that's not that bad, and you get comfortable with it. Or it's like, man, I'm stressed out even just thinking about that for 4 seconds. I could never do that. And that's good. That's fine too.
Mm-hmm. I think the one thing you guys try. Yeah. And EJ, I mean, what you're talking about is mentorship. and having the humbleness to ask. I think that's a big challenge with everybody, is just being willing to say, like you said, Brandon, I don't know, but somebody does. Like most things that we talk about have already been done. You don't have to recreate the wheel. You just got to find the guy or gal who's done it and then go and say to them, hey, how'd you do that? And most of the time, if they're successful at it, they want to talk about themselves. They want to say and pass along that knowledge, to the wisdom, to you guys. Just like I'm sure you guys did it in the locker room, right? Like when you guys had young guys in the locker room who came to you and said, hey, EJ, how do I play for 14 years? Like you would say, well, here's what I did. And you're happy to share it with them. I think that's the piece that so many of us are fearful of, which is the asking. And maybe it's ego.
It's everything. It's everything. We don't. Nobody wants to feel like they don't know something, and nobody want to ask. Whether you feel like you're being a burden, or whether you feel like you say, the ignorance is being shown. Because there's nothing wrong with being ignorant. It just means you don't know. Yeah, that's all it means. But we hear that word, and it's automatically it's a bad attachment associated with it. You know, like, dang, I don't know, which is fine not to know, because you can learn. That means there's room to grow. Nobody want to be in a room with a know-it-all. You know.
Yeah, for sure. No, so I guess how would y'all suggest, like, okay, so you guys play baseball, you play professional, you know how the work schedule is, you know how everything goes along with playing at the highest level that you guys played at, right? How do y'all like suggest people are, or I guess other people are able to kind of find that mentorship? Like I remember the last time you said you had Chipper and all them guys there that kind of, was able to mentor you a little bit, Brandon. But EJ, I guess kind of, was it something along the way when you got into the league that kind of sparked your interest a little bit more? Like I feel like I don't think it started when you got done playing, but I think you kind of had something in you that was like, maybe you saw something before, some guys doing something before that kind of sparked your interest into, franchising or whatever that case may be, anything else.
I think for me, I just always had a hustler mentality. Like, like, I know my wife tells me all the time, like, you can't just do one thing. I'm like, I can't, like, cause I'm always thinking about the next thing, which probably was a gift, a blessing and a curse at the same time. If I could have just focused on one thing, then, maybe things could have been different. But cause I know the game is going to stop. What we do as an athlete, it don't last forever. What you do off the field can last as long as you want to, as long as it's running smooth. I think about my kids, something that I want to have them to be able to fall into. I think about a community, something that I can do that's going to uplift the community, is going to provide jobs, is going to provide, a means of living for somebody else. So I try to disassociate what can it do for me and think what can I do for other people at the same time. Who can I pull along? How many people can I help be successful? I think I always measure my success about how successful are those people around me. Because if I'm the only one in my crew successful, is it really success if I ain't really helping somebody else be successful? If I'm not putting somebody else on a plate that's going to help them create some revenue and generational wealth. So that's always been my approach. And just so happened, I didn't know what it was going to be, but just so happened it fell into me with the franchising. I'm like, man, there's something that I can do, that I can have a store that I can, like, okay, this is going to be a family store. I can call my boys like, hey, whatever you want to put in, let me know. We don't have to, it can be 1,000, it can be 500. And I can take some of that away from me and allow you to start some kind of revenue. So that's always just been my approach about how can I help people around me. And it came to this, and I'm like, this is a dope avenue for me to be able to explore and try to help some people around me.
Brandon, I am more numbers related. So let's put Alec and I in a position we have no idea how we should think about franchising or evaluating an opportunity. Let's just start with, let's assume we find a skill set that works, and that could be either as an operator, or let's just say, EJ, like a GP partner, and you bring somebody else in to operate. how should we think about it from a numbers standpoint? What's a good franchise return on your money? And that could be, I mean, annualized cash on cash. How do you think about that? How do you counsel people to understand the financial viability of a franchise?
Yeah, it's going to depend, right? Because franchising is so broad. It could be, I mean, you have owner operators that are one man teams that are doing, virtual, mobile from home businesses with zero overhead, B2B kind of sales stuff that are, they're paying themselves. So it's, if 100,000 is what you need for the lifestyle, like there's businesses that fit that. If you're looking for, 7-figure returns year over year, there's businesses that will show you that in their item 19 as well. So it just depends what you're looking for in terms of what you're putting in, what kind of structure you want to set up, what your level of involvement wants to be. Because if you're talking about, being a partner in 5 locations of something, then obviously the numbers are going to look different than if you're like me, I own and operate, one market, one service industry business. It's a little different. So it's hard to answer that question, I guess, Kris, because it's all out there. Anything that you want, there are people doing it. And I guess, and that's kind of part of what I do is kind of point you in that direction based on what you're looking to do. Sorry, I know that's a big non-answer.
No, that was good.
Well, I think
that's good.
It's probably a shitty question. That's why there's not a great answer. I think how I think of everything, right, is like just from a pure ROI standpoint is, and this can be, I guess the differentiator is, do you want to be a passive investor or an active investor? Do you want to be an operator or you just want to write a check and hire somebody else? But where I kind of start with everything is I want to understand the return profile first, right? Like, yeah, there's high level revenue everywhere, but if I put in $100 as a passive investor, what's my projections? Because there's other options that may be more or less attractive based on that. And what I've always heard, and Brandon, maybe this is myth, is somewhere in the neighborhood of you want a model that when up and running, you should be able to get your money back in kind of that 3 to 5 year window. Is that a reasonable expectation? So if I put $100 into something, I should have a path to $20 a year, so that in 5 years I got my $100 back in the pocket. Is that a reasonable filter?
Yeah, I think that's super reasonable. And there aren't going to be any systems really out there that I could show you that aren't showing a path to that, where the average person in that system is doing that. And it's always a bell curve, right? You're going to have the top third absolutely crushing that. They might be getting that $100 back in year 1 or 18 months. And then the middle is going to be kind of on that trajectory you're looking at. And then you're going to have a 30% in the bottom, no matter what system. Now that could be for a myriad of reasons, right? Like there's people that get into franchising purely for the real estate, and I'm a real estate guy. I just need to put something in this building. I don't care if this business makes money. I've talked to those. So that's why, like, when you're evaluating a franchise, talking to people that are in that top, in the bottom, and somewhere in the middle, and figuring out why is really important to doing that. But yeah, I think they wouldn't be selling a bunch of locations and growing if what you're talking about, which is pretty conservative in a 5-year span to get your return back, if that wasn't average, I'd say.
EJ, is that what you guys see in the model that you guys are doing for most of the stuff? And it could be Raining Berries or other projects you're working on in LCP.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. And I mean, even as the deals that I did before Raining Berries, just working with my financial guy, we looked for deals that was going to get your money back within a 3 to 5 year. Like Brandon said, anything before that was a bonus. I've had deals where we think 3 to 5 is going to get back, and we get it back in year 2. Or 1.5 years, we got somebody that want to come buy it out. And like you said, that's a bonus. But we do look at deals that within a 3 to 5 year period that you are getting your money back and you're ready to kind of make some good returns on your investment.
So I guess kind of a two-part question I have here. One, EJ, when you're going to look at these different franchises, so the one at Rain and Berries, like, you mentioned LCP concession is looking to buy equity into these franchise company. How do you depict like which company is willing to offer that opportunity to LCP concessions versus the ones that are not? Like what are those conversations like? And then Brandon, my next question was well, I guess I'll let EJ answer that first, and then I'll go to you.
That's where we are lucky to have Steve Gardner in our corner with, because he is able to align brands that align with us, whether and understand and have the brands understand before they even have the conversations with Dave and myself that we are looking for brands that are interested in a partnership. If you aren't interested in a partnership, then there's not even a conversation with Dave and myself. So we are fortunate to have that hands on ground that already know what we're looking for. And a lot of these brands, most of the brands that we are in right now, health and lifestyle. We have a couple that aren't, but for the most part, they are. So they align with the mission and they align with what we have going on. But we do have that special opportunity to have someone in our corner that have connections with certain brands that's able to have a pre-conversation before they are brought to us to introduce themselves to Dave and myself to get conversations going about growing their brand.
Okay, that's good. And then Brandon, so my question to you was, when you're like consulting and guiding these people to these different franchise, the directions or whatever that they want to go, right? Is it something where like you're breaking down, I guess, how do I say it? I kind of lost my train of thought, but you're breaking down like what they look for in terms of like I said, like either they want to be a equity partner or they just want to be, a person that invests, passively or whatever. Are you breaking it down in the sense of like, okay, you can make this amount of return, or this franchise has these amount of location. They offer this in a deal like this, or, kind of answer that a little bit.
Yeah. So that's a big part. First off, is what they want to do. What do they want their day to day to look like on the involvement side? And then the monetary returns, kind of what their skills are, like what their interests are, and kind of packaging that all in, and evaluating it that way. Because and then talking to the brands too, like, hey, especially in the service industry, and service has gotten real popular because of the scalability, and you're not having to build out a new location each time. It's just quicker to open. So people are really like that. But what comes with that is a trade-off of your time, usually, right? Lower investments would be more time, and figuring out, are you comfortable with that? Like, because if you want to be more of an executive kind of investor model, you need to understand that and look at a business that fits that. And then, I'm trying to, making sure like, hey, do you have 4 or 5 people that are doing what this guy wants to do in your system that he can talk to, and make sure that I'm not sending somebody to a brand that is, that doesn't have that kind of track record or validation out there for what they're looking for. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
No, it does. And I mean, it kind of makes me ask a further question with it. So like you mentioned that, most of the time you don't want to go to a business or franchise that doesn't have like that track record or whatever. It doesn't mean that that person has a bad idea or whatever. It's just kind of like a criteria. And so it just kind of makes me think about like, okay, some of these franchises, they started out, I'm pretty sure they started out with one, one thing, and it kind of took off from there, and they kind of started building over time. So how do you still keep people open to the idea of starting with somebody that doesn't have so much of a track record versus somebody that, obviously you can go to your Starbucks, you can point to your Starbucks, your Popeyes, whatever, all that Dunkin' Donuts, all that stuff like that, right? You can point to those because they've been around. They've done it. They have
the problem with all those that we all know their names is we know their names because the territories are all sold out, right? They're everywhere. It's tough. So some of it's individual, right? Like what's your, propensity for risk, because something that's newer is riskier, but then there's other factors to look at too. What is the parent company, the ownership, like what kind of structure do they have in place to go from 5 locations to 150 over the next 2 years? Are they part of a bigger parent company that does, if it's a service brand, are they part of a parent company that has other service brands and they have relationship advantages in the space? Or, whether it's fitness, they've got 6 other brands that are all crushing it type of thing. But no, that's a big part of it, right? And I kind of fell victim to myself in that example where I'm just finishing up playing ball, finally, realizing my body couldn't do it anymore. And somebody, I started looking at this idea for Stretch Lab, which I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I laughed at it. I was like, there's no, I just came from professional sports. People aren't going to pay to go in and have somebody stretch them out. It's like, no, show me something else. I just don't want to see that. And now those things are crushing, man. Yeah. Like I was looking at it from a consumer perspective.
Yeah.
And I was in my own way, and it was a newer concept. And I just couldn't get on board. And that's what I try to help people avoid now, right? Like you still might be the person that has like, man, I need to see at least 50 locations open to invest in this and buy in. And that's fine. But if you're not, looking at it through a different lens than I did, catching, that wave early can be super beneficial because you can go from 1 location to 5 before they're all bought up and be setting yourself up really, really well.
Yeah, Alec,
that's so hard, dude.
I was just gonna say another thing to add on in the process of how we pick people, man. You can have companies that make a lot of money, but they don't have the right people running the company. I think that's important who you attach yourself to, because everybody you attach yourself to is a branch off of yourself, So you have to definitely be careful in that. You want genuinely good people with a good vision and people that are doing things for the right reason. Like I said, it was like an athlete who's a good athlete, but he keep getting in trouble. Only so many people are gonna give you a chance before your time run out, because nobody gonna want to deal with what you bring to the table, and your what you do on the field gets looked over because of your attitude. So it's the same thing in the business model. We're looking for good people because we definitely have to be careful who you attach yourself to.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time in the world of passive investing, which is just team and track record, right? And Brandon, I hear you on the story of like a Stretch Lab where, you saw them at 20 locations and now they got 500. I'm making up the numbers. I don't know. But there's a lot of those stories where you had 20 locations and now there's 0. So it's always that balance on the risk spectrum of, if I'm taking the risk with a return scenario that is outsized, I got to be compensated for the risk I'm going to take, because there might be an opportunity where it's established, they have a program, and that risk has been mitigated. I'll speak to my wife owns a franchise. She's 8 months in a fitness concept. And the thing that we are finding is that the franchise is still figuring stuff out too, right? And they got about 100 sold, about 60 open. So, just like any business, there's stuff that works and there's stuff that doesn't work, and they're still figuring it out as they go. Where, Brandon, to your point, if they got 300 and they've been around for 10 years, they probably got those standards and procedures set up. I think that's the other thing to be considering if you're looking at franchising is you're paying them to be your advisor. Make sure they've worked out the kinks. And Edwin, EJ, you mentioned like you guys are at 8 stores with another 9. Like, you're still figuring, there's still stuff, like there's a model there, but there's still stuff that 2 years from now, you're going to have figured out that you don't have yet. Is that a fair
Yeah,
thing to
no,
say?
that's fair. That's fair. You're not 300 strong yet. Like you said, you're not 300 strong yet. You're still adding different components to the brand. So there is somewhat of still trial and error. He's proven to be successful, but is it as successful as a tropical? No, not yet. So you still have your learning lessons, and you just put yourself in a situation to where your little bumps and bruises don't cost you dearly. It's something that you can recover from and recoup from, and take it into the next store and make your adjustments from there.
Yeah, back to what I was saying about the individual, the person. Like that could be an advantage for somebody. Like, hey, like they're learning. I can contribute, because it's a partnership, right? And that's like EJ was saying. Like you got to evaluate. The franchise is evaluating you. You're evaluating them, especially early on. Both sides are super invested in making that work. So again, it's not right for everybody, but in the right situation, um, it can work. But yeah, there's definitely risks, Kris. There's no doubt about that. Like this is not it's not a passive investment. It's a business.
Yeah, for sure. What's the mistake most new franchisors, and EJ, you may say this from the platform you guys are looking at, and Brandon, from the guys that you've placed, what's the biggest mistake most guys or gals make that you see?
I would say just not doing the homework before you just go out and want to invest in something. Everything that sounds good isn't good in every area. As I've been in these meetings and as I've been doing write-arounds, I've been learning a lot of different things about every brand doesn't fit everywhere. Just because it sounds good and this brand is doing well in this part of the region, it doesn't mean that it's going to come to this part of the region and make a killing. So it's being very particular what brand you pick and where you place the brand. The location is a big factor. And what I've been seeing, and I feel like had I been doing it on my own, I probably just like I can throw it over here, not doing my research and not doing my homework to see is it the right demographic, is it the right crowd that I'm attracting with this brand. So I think it's just doing the homework and doing the due diligence to make sure you got all your X's and O's crossed before you just go up and run up and throw your money into a brand.
Yeah, I think it's all in the due diligence, and that could mean a lot of different things for different people, whether it's the market, the service, or like specifically with franchisees. I see people struggle when they focus on the numbers. You'll see people on Twitter throwing out numbers from the FDD and all that stuff. That's just a sales pitch, right? We're done pitching.
Brandon, what's FDD? For
I,
most people who don't know, what's an FDD?
that's a franchise disclosure document. Something each brand has to register with the FTC, and it tells you the ranges on the investment and the return numbers across the system. And falling in love with that, and is just a piece of the pie, right? And to get into a business, you need the whole pie. You need to figure out what the whole thing looks like. And like I touched on earlier, the numbers might work, but it might be like it might be you and your wife are trying to keep your day jobs, right? And you think you're being told you can do this and keep your jobs. And it's a service industry, and service people, the service itself, something goes wrong, you lose your employees, and all of a sudden now it's not as easy as you thought, because you talked to the brand, you didn't talk to enough of the people that were actually doing it to find out how realistic what you specifically wanted to do with that brand was.
That's where you find out where the skeletons are in the closet. You talk to 10, 15 franchisors, the brand is selling you. They make you money. So EJ, you mentioned Craig Brown. He made a great point, which is vendors or advisors. Advisors are getting paid regardless of your decision, right? Like they are there to help you. You can say yes or no. Vendors get paid when you buy something, and the franchises are selling you something. And so I think that's the thing you're mentioning, Brandon, right? Is like, go find out what skeletons are in the closet, because they're there. When someone calls us about Jen's concept fitness, the fitness concept now, Jen can say, well, here's in my 8 months what I've learned. And I didn't learn it from reading my FDD when I wrote the check up front. I learned it, 8 months, kind of some bumps along the way. And like you said, nothing's perfect. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
You have to be sold on the person and the brand. You have to be sold on both.
No, that's for sure. No, yeah, man. No, we won't take too much more of you guys' time. Where we at? We at? We probably about 45 minutes or so into it.
42:54.
Okay, yeah. We right on schedule. We right on schedule. Just kind of a little last few follow-up questions. So with Rain and Bear, you say that is, you guys do gelato and what else?
It's acai, acai coffee, gelato smoothies.
Okay. And what I guess kind of what made you guys choose Rain and Berries, in a sense, because they're not, like you said, they're not the only ones out there in a sense doing it, but it's something about them that obviously you guys felt comfortable with.
I think for me, man, I was sold on a person before I was sold on a brand. So just that conversation with Bimmel, I was like, you know what? This dude is genuine. He's built something from the ground up. Obviously, the numbers have to make sense once you go do your homework. But that's just another prime example on had he been an asshole, I probably wouldn't even talk to him. We would have had a conversation that would have went anywhere. But he was a cool dude. He was genuine, and I seen it, and I went and looked at his pictures, and I'm like, this is something that my wife would want to go to. So it had a direct effect. And we went down to Sarasota and we saw his store, and it was like we got greeted like we were at home. Him, his two kids, they were super welcoming. Everything was genuine. So that feeling and that sense of a welcoming feeling was all we needed. I was like, okay, the concept is amazing. The concept is dope. His acai differentiates from everybody else the way it's made. He has different components in the way he makes it. It's a game changer in its own. Plus the ambiance is something that I was looking at for where I live. I'm like, man, this has Scottsdale written all over it. It has sexy written all over it. It's something that the women are going to want to go to. And once the women want to go to it, everybody else is going to follow along in that world. And like I say, it was more so Bimmel that I was attracted to before the brand. And the brand was the extra topping on the cake.
So those relationships,
It was relationships,
they always key.
Man.
I mean, in anything, they've been key that I've encountered. Obviously sports wise, and then like you said, business wise, as you learn, those relationships matter. And like you said, having those conversations with those people, like, just make you think a little bit different. You're like, you know what? Actually, because I rock with dude, I'm gonna actually go ahead and do. I trust him. He got good energy. We kind of on one accord right there.
Am I partner with the brand, or am I partner with the person? Yeah.
Yes. Brandon, how do you think about, and you guys are still early in your franchising careers, but how do you think about exit? What do you ask people to think about on the back end, or from a franchising standpoint, what's the end goal with this? And I realize everybody's situation is different, but as a model, how do most people exit? Is it a sell, or they just continue to buy franchises and build a corporate structure around it? Like, what do you generally see as the exit?
Yeah, it could be an individual, location sale, getting it. And I know people that they've been doing it serially for decades, where it's, hey, we open up a few locations, get them up, get them cash flowing, sell them between years 5 and 7, and do it again. There's a lot of tax benefits in owning your own business and doing some of those things. So there's people that get into it, like you said, for all different reasons. There's people that will, over the course of decades, grow it and just have a stable of locations and have something, private equity is not above buying franchise locations. It's happening more and more across all different industries. Getting your EBITDA up there to $1 million across multiple locations, if it takes that, you're attracting a lot of buyers. So you have a real asset you can sell, and that's I think what most people I talk to, that's what they're looking for. They want to build something that will cash flow and have real value in the long run. Whether that value to them is having something that their kids can then take over and run, or having something, as an asset to sell at a certain point. That I talk to people that are trying to do and doing all of those things, I guess.
Yeah.
What do you think your exit is? I'm going to ask that question to both you guys. Maybe that's a good way that we wrap up. So as you think about Koala, what's the long-term plan? Where is this thing 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
I don't know. It's a good business. I have conversations with my GM all the time about that. Like, what's our path? Like, hey, there's all these different avenues that we don't tap into now that we could. If I was going to sell it a year from now and I knew that, we would get into all these different things because it would boost the top line and bottom line. But is it worth the stress, the added stress that it would take to do that? Right now, the answer is no. So it's kind of ever evolving. And it's, I added another service business that I ultimately shut down pretty quickly because it just wasn't the right fit for my market and took away from our core business. But we talk all the time about other businesses. So that's, stacking other services is something I'm looking at. And that's in 3 to 5 years, I could have 2 other services that I can now package with the insulation business. And that'd be a good spot to be, I guess. So it's more what I can add to the insulation business than what I do with it, I guess, is the way I'm looking at it.
Bolt-ons, tuck-in type operations that fit in the world that you live in. Yeah, that makes sense. EJ, how do you feel about LCP? Like, I know it's still early, but what do you think about long term?
At the end of the day, it all depends on the number. Everything is a number. I mean, like I said,
y'all can buy me out.
Everything is a number. I mean, but for right now, I'm in it for long term. I see this as something that is going to grow exponentially. So I'm looking long term right now. We do have brands that have numbers. We have brands that have a number in mind that they want to get to. We have other brands that may not want to get to that number, and it's just a matter of if somebody come in and offer the right numbers. So it's a mix of both. Like you say, the exit plans are different for every brand. It could be a brand where it's a family name attached to it, and they just really want to keep it in the family. It could be a brand where they want to go do a certain amount of numbers, sell it, and then go to the next concept. So every brand has this unique exit plan that we are dealing with, and that's another thing that we check for when we are dealing with brands. The exit plan. What is the vision for the brands, and so we can kind of fill that out, and we can kind of know the work that's going to be needed to be done from our end numerically with helping that brand grow. But like Brandon said, every brand has a different number, and some don't have a number. Some like, nope, this is family. I want to keep it. I'm not looking to sell it.
Mm-hmm. No, most definitely. I guess before we do leave, we always ask our guests to kind of give us where people can get in contact with them, via Instagram, X, LinkedIn, whatever you want to say. So EJ, can you let us know?
On Instagram, it's ejack36. LinkedIn, I just got my LinkedIn going on. It's just Edwin Jackson. I laugh at people. I say, I didn't know LinkedIn was that big. I used to see it all the time.
Me
Like, man,
either.
I don't need that. Then come to find out in the business world, boy, it's everything. And I'm like, all right. So on LinkedIn is just Edwin
I just
Jackson.
updated mine yesterday.
I'm telling you, email, you can reach me at Edwin at the Alpha Fund dot co. And yeah, those on X is just Edwin Jackson, I believe, or EJ36. There's so many different handles. Yeah, X is EJ36.
Yeah.
And those my four right there.
No, for sure. No, we appreciate that. Brandon, one more time.
I'm on LinkedIn as well. You can find me there. I don't really use X anymore, but I'm on there as well. You can find me. I think it's just my name. And then Brandon at whatsnextfranchising.com. You can go to the site, just fill out a form or email me there, and we'd be happy to talk to anybody about franchising.
Most definitely.
Well, super grateful you guys taking the time. A lot of wisdom there. I think some good lessons to be learned from guys who are looking at the franchising model. And hopefully, if you guys can reach out to these guys. They can be your mentors. Don't do it on your own. Find guys who've already done it and let them bring you along. So super grateful. Thanks for being Beyond the Game.
Appreciate it.
Hey, Kris and Alex, pleasure is ours. Yeah, pleasure is ours.
Yes, sir. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you for tuning in to Beyond the Game. Please like, subscribe, comment on your favorite platform. It helps others find the show.